News Radio 700 WLW.
We've been talking about this working from home thing for, 18 months now, a year and a half, more or less.
Yeah.
Right?
No longer the new thing. Yeah, it's kind of what you do now.
Yeah, it's not the new normal, it's the current normal. And so people working at home, you get your work done. If you're sitting because I see some people working in this office space that we, and I'm talking about people who work here, but I look through some of the windows on my way through the hallway, and I see these other people working, and it looks like some of those people are just sitting there. There used to be a woman who worked they changed that office. But I would walk by there, and unfortunately for her, I guess because her boss was on the other side of the screen, you could see clearly she was playing solitaire sitting at her reception desk. And so, nice. And I know that's a tough job, but sometimes there's not a lot to do. So a lot of people are sitting at home, they get their work done, they're thinking, well, hell, I can get a side hustle going over here and make a little extra money while I'm doing this. If you're going to sit there for 8 hours, you might as well do something.
Might as well, exactly. Yeah, with not having to go into an office, you don't have to physically be at a place. And if you work through a computer, which a lot of people do, why not get you a second job going?
Well, let's talk to an expert in this matter to see if that's a bad or a good thing. Our friend Spencer O'Leary, the CEO of ActiveOps, they're a global company and leader in management process automation. Spencer, welcome back to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Spencer, do you think as long as you're getting work done on both counts now, you can't half-ass one, if both jobs you're fulfilling your obligations, is that a bad thing?
Well, for most employers, I think there's always an opportunity to improve the productivity of the workforce. And that was hard enough to do when we all sat in the office and you could use your eyes to see your example of the lady playing solitaire. But when we've got a bunch of people who are working from home, that job's even harder. So there's a phrase I use a lot that says a lack of productivity is predominantly driven by people not having enough work to do. Most people, if you give them 7 hours worth of work, working at a reasonable rate, with a reasonable amount of breaks so their well-being is okay, they'll get through that work in the time you've allotted them. But if you give somebody 5 hours work, and you pay them for 7 hours, they'll probably take 7 hours to do the 5 hours worth of work. Right. So is it appropriate for somebody having two jobs? Maybe, maybe not, but is it appropriate for employers to be spending more than they need to? The only effect of that is us as consumers end up paying more for the goods and services that we want. So a lack of productivity in the workplace, I think, has an impact for us all.
Very interesting. Spencer, just off the top of your head, what are some of the businesses or industries that are most likely to be, let's say, double dipped? They're actually to be your second job.
So I think in the service industry, particularly, where I've not got a job that means I'm talking to customers, ear to ear, as it were. I'm certainly not doing it face to face. But if I'm not on the phone with customers, I'm sort of hidden behind an administrative layer of a business. Actually, if not managed appropriately, it's quite easy for someone to do two jobs. If they don't have to attend online meetings, they're just processing work. I can have two laptops, one shipped to me by each company, and as long as I do a reasonable amount of work on both laptops, no one's going to be any the wiser.
And how tough, it depends on what you do, obviously, but Spencer, I wouldn't think that in some cases that actually wouldn't be that tough to do.
I don't think that's tough to do. Unless the organisation that individual works for is invested in some smart software like we provide at ActiveOps that enables managers to understand what's happening. We're monitoring and measuring people's inputs and outputs so we can see what's going on.
And that's
exactly what I was going to bring up, because that you're hearing that more and more. The boss is tracking your keystrokes and seeing not only what websites you're going to, but what you're actually doing on your interface there. I guess the question is how much experience do you have with people? Are people okay with that? Are they not okay with that? Or is there a lot of pushback on the boss being able to essentially snoop on your computer?
Basically spy on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know what the percentage of people is who's trying to do this two-job solution to their bank balance, but I suspect it's a lot less than 50. It's probably 5 or 10% of people, maybe not even that, who are trying to do it. So most people want to go into work or work from home, and they want a good day's pay for a good day's work. And what really frustrates those workers, it drives morale down, it even drives well-being down, is when they think somebody else is either getting it easier or getting it better than them. So most employees that we monitor, they're fully aware that that's happening, and they're fully supportive of, if I'm coming to work and I'm getting a fair day's pay for a fair day's work, I'm absolutely happy for my boss to see exactly what I'm doing. And the people who don't like it are generally the ones who've got something to hide.
So, Spencer, you work with these people who are, bosses in corporations and whatnot, who are dealing with people working from home. What are you seeing? Is it working out for the most part, or is it gradually, as it goes on, is it eroding their productivity, or is it staying about the same, or is it actually increasing?
Well, there's a couple of ups and a couple of downs. So we, as I say, monitor and measure what's going on, and we absolutely see productivity rose during the pandemic. It continues to rise. It's starting to be slightly eroded now as people go into sort of a hybrid model, working from home, working from the office, a bit of travel in between. But generally, productivity is improved when distraction is reduced. And we all know, whilst there's some distraction working from home, the distraction of not going to the coffee machine every hour and talking to your colleagues, that they go away, so I can focus more. They're the ups. But the downs, well-being, employee well-being, and getting that wrong starts to drive workplace stress. We see sickness increase. We see attrition because people leave their jobs. Huge cost to business. Even things like creativity and ideas generation, those things definitely decrease as we work solely from home, when we don't innovate and collaborate and congregate with our colleagues. So whilst productivity might be up, I think there's a much greater cost to business on lack of innovation and poor well-being that's caused by people 100% of the time working from home. So I think the hybrid workplace, home working a couple of days a week, office working a couple of days a week, mix that around a little bit, I think that's the best of both worlds. We'll see productivity up, innovation, creativity, and well-being up, and that's a good place to be.
Well, and that's the thing, too. I think people talk about water cooler chat and all that stuff, where it's like, oh, did you hear Bill in accounting is sleeping with Sheila, from sales, and that kind of thing. But there's also, hey, you know what I was thinking about? We've been talking about that one thing, and you congregate and you talk about that and kick ideas around. I think that's overlooked because of that other stuff. But I think that stuff happens, and I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Actually getting together and discussing ideas.
Exactly, and there'll be those who say, but you can do that over Zoom or Teams and that kind of stuff. But if we think about people's preferences and behaviors, often the quietest person in the room is the one that's got the best ideas. And it's hard enough around the water cooler to get them to speak out, but it's a lot easier doing it around the water cooler than it is on a Zoom or a Teams meeting, where those great ideas in those people's heads who are that little bit quieter, they're not at the back of the room, so not saying anything. They're sort of hidden on Teams or Zoom, and you don't get those ideas out. So I think there's a real risk if we continue to work entirely remotely from home, that we all become this sort of self-enclosed ideas, and we don't share things, and that's really going to drive, in the wrong way, a lack of innovation in our businesses tomorrow and beyond.
All right, Spencer O'Leary, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.